Good evening, fight fans. This is the Radulich Broadcasting Network alternative commentary for Bellator 237 Fedor versus Rampage. Normally, when we do... I'm your host, Mark Radulich, the mandated reporter, and frankly, I'm mortified. Normally, when we do these, we do the entire UFC card, but this is Bellator, and it really... does anyone really care? Does anyone really care about the rest of these? Well, if you do, Michael Venom Page KO'd Shinzo Anzai in round 2 in about 23 seconds. Godi Yamauchi defeated Darren Cruikshank, who came out to Real American, by the way, by submission. Yamaguchi did rear naked choke. Round 1 at 3 minutes and 11 seconds. Ilara Joan versus Kana Watanabe. Watanabe won by TKO in the third round. Lorenz Larkin, Skitty Lorenz Larkin, won a unanimous decision against Keita Nakamura. And just a few minutes ago, Michael Chandler defeated Sidney Outlaw by murder, death, kill in round 1. So joining me to talk about this glorious main event to end our year of combat sports coverage here on the Radulich Broadcasting Network is the punchy pugilist himself, Mr. Pat Mullin. How do you do, sir?
Good evening, Mark. It would take something like this to bring me out to comment on an MMA card, because I'm pretty sure the last time I did this was a Fedor fight. And, yeah, I remember that fight not going long, and...
Yeah, we that was one where we just like at the we had just finished with a boxing card, and we were like, oh, you know what? Meatheads fighting Fedor on a Bellator card, and that explanation and my cajoling you and Robert to cover it took longer than the fight itself.
Yes, it did, because it ended on the first punch that was thrown.
Poor Fedor. So, tell us a little bit about the history of Fedor and Rampage. I believe they last fought each other in Pride.
I don't think they've ever fought each other.
I thought they did.
No, I'm pretty sure they never did.
Oh, okay. Any clue as to why?
That they never fought?
Yeah.
Fedor really never did the open weight Grand Prix. I don't think Rampage did either, and they were in different weight classes, so...
Okay. So, both of these guys are kind of well past their prime. Rampage is currently 41 years old, and the last time he fought was against Wanderlei Silva.
Because we needed that fourth fight.
Maybe that's what I was thinking of. Last September 2018. So prior to that, and then he won that fight. It was a TKO in the second round. Prior to that, he lost 2 decisions, one to Chael Sonnen and the other to King Mo, who is now currently retired. So, how do you see this fight going?
Whoever lands first wins.
It's going to be a short night, eh?
Maybe. Listen, Fedor can't take punishment anymore. We've seen that. And the thing with Rampage is, for all the out-of-shape jokes we make about him and his lack of wrestling ability or seeming to care not how to wrestle anymore, he still can hit. I mean, he knocked out Wanderlei. He can still hit. Whether he hits hard enough to knock Fedor out, I don't think that's really a question. I think he can. Fedor's seen better days himself. Fedor, you said Rampage is 41. Fedor's 43. And again, we're talking about a guy who in his last fight was knocked out with the first punch that was thrown. He's also, for all the talk about being on the downslide at least, he's still only got 6 career losses. And 2 of them are in his last 4 against Matt Mitrione when they basically knocked each other out, and Mitrione just happened to get up first and capitalize. And the Ryan Bader fight, which we saw, where Bader, for all his lack of technique and in that sense as a striker, he's still a big, strong guy who's always in shape. And he landed. Sandwiched in between there, he's knocked out Frank Mir and knocked out Chael Sonnen. So I'm curious to see how this is going to play out, because if Rampage doesn't clip him on the way in and Fedor is able to get him to the ground, it might be over quick in that sense. And I'm curious to see it.
So, talking about Fedor, he had a run of real bad luck in Strikeforce, going all the way back to 2010, almost a decade ago. He had the triangle submission loss to Verdun, and then he got battered about the head in the Bellator Grand Prix against Bigfoot, and then he was knocked out in the first round against Dan Henderson, and then he unceremoniously left. Then he went on his redemption tour, which started with his fight for M1 Global against Jeff Munson, which was a pay-per-view like first thing in the morning in Russia, which was literally like just a redemption fight. And even that one went to a decision. He then did the Fight for Japan, where he did I think it was a New Year's Eve fight.
Yeah, against Ishii, which that was supposed to at one point be his retirement fight.
Right.
Then he headlined an M1 show where they're like, okay, this is really it. So he fought Pedro Hizzo in Leningrad and knocked him out. And then I guess, money talked, because he fought for Rizin and he fought for Fight Night Global, and then Bellator was able to sign him to a deal to fight.
Yeah, if there's one thing that we know about Scott Coker is he knows how to throw money at people. So, and they've had a relationship from Strikeforce. So, here we are, and I think you're right. I think this is going to be one of those where, unless it's a lot of just tying up and circling and making each other miss, I think this is going to come down to whoever lands first and hardest. So I don't think you and I are going to be doing this for very long.
I don't think so, but you know what? This is what Bellator is for us. Bellator is freak show main event fights we never thought would happen, and we love them for it. Because let's be honest, like, if you really want a real alternative to the UFC, this is how you do it. You take big name fighters from the time when MMA and UFC was probably at its most popular widely, and put those guys in against each other. I remember that guy.
No, absolutely. And look, there are people in the UFC who have come over to Bellator because they feel like they've maximized their earning potential in the UFC under the current pay structure, and Strikeforce needs names. They just need recognizable names that have main evented fight nights or UFC pay-per-views or main carded UFC pay-per-views, and those guys anchor a lot of these Bellator fights now. They just talked about Cyborg, who jumped from the UFC over to Bellator, who's going to be headlining a card in the very near future, I think against Julia Budd. So you've got that. You've got Ben Henderson, who was supposed to be on this card, but ended up getting replaced by Outlaw because he was injured. But he's there. You have Rory McDonald. I feel like there was we talked about some of these guys that were in the heavyweight division: Ryan Bader, Matt Mitrione, Frank Mir. So
Big Country, Josh Barnett.
Yep, both of those guys. As a matter of fact, Josh Barnett just fought, I believe, last weekend.
He was supposed to fight and was pulled off the day of.
Oh, what? I didn't even catch it because I was away for the weekend. What happened there?
Some kind of really bad illness hit him like the day of the fight, and they had to pull him from that card.
Who ended up fighting in the main event then?
I don't recall.
Okay, fair enough.
Rampage has a sweatshirt on, and I see love handles through the sweatshirt.
Yeah, Rampage
and I see a belly paunching through.
Rampage's face, right? The way they're shooting him right now at where I am watching on the Paramount Network, they're only shooting him from the shoulders up, and his face is really bloated.
Yeah, he looks like he hasn't missed a meal lately.
Well, I'm sure he eats well. Christ, when was the last time Rampage fought?
It was Vanderlei, right? We said that.
Yeah, right. I'm sorry. It was September of last year. Duh. So he's been out of action for a year. And then even prior to that, he fought in January of 2018. So he had 2 fights. He had no other fights this year. He spent 2019 being entirely inactive, except for tonight. And then in 2018, he had 2 fights, one in January, one in September. And then prior to that, 1 fight in 2017. 1 fight in 2016. 1 fight in 2015. And 2 fights in 2014. So,
and just looking at him, they're not shooting again. They're refusing to shoot him from the stomach area. But just looking at him where he is, I see overhang. Now they're widening the shot. I see overhang on his trunks or pants. He doesn't look like he's been doing a lot to get ready for this. He's definitely got a chin there.
I wish that they would let him fight in overalls. That would be perfect. I mean, Fedor's always looked kind of soft, too. I'll be curious to see what kind of shape he comes up in.
Right, but you're talking about Rampage, who at one point in time, looked like he was carved out of stone, when he was the light heavyweight champion and knocking out Chuck Liddell and Vanderlei and these guys, and then he just didn't care.
Yeah. I'll never forget his fight with John Jones. Not so much the fight itself, because it was kind of forgettable, but after the fight where he whined and complained about John Jones kicking him in the knees, quote unquote,
oh boy,
like a girl.
He's fat. Like, there's not a nice way to say it.
Well, hopefully this is his last fight then.
I doubt it. He's still on a payroll. He's still got a name.
Maybe they'll put him against Roy Nelson next. That's a good look for the sport.
The funny part is he still stands a pretty good chance at winning this. I didn't look at the odds for this. And I didn't look at the weigh-ins either, which I would have liked to. So I want to pull it up right now. And Fedor is a slight favorite. So they kind of have the same idea we do, I think.
Which is, if this goes out of the first round, Rampage is going to gas and get himself knocked out.
Yeah. And now I really want to pull up the weigh-in results. Fedor came in at 240, which is heavy for him, but not far from where he's been. Rampage weighed in at 265.
Yuck.
He weighed in at 265 as a guy who used to fight at 205 pounds.
Yeah, Fedor doesn't look all that different from the last time I saw him. The last couple of times I've seen him.
Like you said, he's always been more on the paunchy side. But that has more to do with the fact that he trains very sport-specific.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was never known as a body guy. But this was a guy who was an excellent martial artist.
And still the demeanor of a serial killer.
Well, he's also from Russia.
Each guy in their career has 38 wins. Each guy in their career has 15 wins via submission and 14 via knockout.
Fedor with a slight reach advantage. See if that plays into the fight at all. 3 inches.
Well, in theory it should, but in reality, the way Fedor punches, I don't think I've ever seen him throw a jab. I think I've only seen him throw overhand rights or left hooks or uppercuts.
All right, we're getting the fighters announced now. They're both in the cage. Fedor pacing, looking down. Rampage doing his level best to look menacing.
He probably does at the buffet table.
Should have came to the ring in like a bunch of gold chains and a mohawk. Dun, 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 dun.
I think Mr. T would turn in his grave if that was the case.
Did you ever see the A-Team movie?
Yes.
They're flying a tank.
Even I had to kind of pull back on that absurdity a little bit.
I laughed at that line. I mean, the movie itself is whatever, but the line about them Flying a tank I thought was funny.
265 for Rampage. Good grief.
I think it's safe to say he did not train for this fight.
I think it's safe to say the promo picture they used was from 2007.
I would agree with you.
I imagine he had to cut to 265.
Like maybe like a week before the fight, he actually started running.
That sounds about right. This is James the Grim Reaper Roper in the Great White Hype.
He like waddled to the center of the cage. Like if you looked at his
waddle, but they don't fall down.
You looked at his gait. He just kind of side shuffles. Yeah, he has no body definition at all. He is quite pudgy. All right, here we go. All right, the fighters square off, kind of taking each other's measure. Fedor fires off first. And Fedor is going to work on Rampage, who covers up.
You would think at 265 he'd be able to cover more. When has Fedor ever looked better cosmetically than his opponent?
Ooh. Better cosmetically.
Zulazino or Choi Hong Man?
You could argue he was in better shape than Bigfoot. Bigfoot just kind of fell on him and never got off.
Boy, that was ugly. That was not good. I don't ever want to watch anything like that again.
Oh my god. So, Rampage threw like an overhand and it looked like he was about to fall over. Rampage throws again. Fedor ties him up, kind of throws him. Fedor, sensing Rampage doesn't have a whole lot in him, starts just throwing punches. Rampage intends to just cover up.
This is like watching Data 5000 again.
Well, hopefully one of them doesn't die of a heart attack in the ring.
That almost happened. It didn't happen.
I thought Dada fight died the night of the fight, or no?
No, Kimbo died later. Dada, I believe, is still alive.
Oh, really? I thought Dada was dead too. This is what happens. You don't take notes before the fight.
Yeah. Well, nobody should take notes on a fight like that.
Leg kick from Fedor. Fedor is just really teeing off on Rampage. Rampage.
I'm shocked he hasn't gotten him out of there yet. God, Rampage is just so fat.
Fedor tripped himself kicking. He threw a kick and then stumbled.
Yeah, I don't understand why he threw a kick. He never throws kicks. He did jab in this fight, though, and I said I'd never seen him throw a jab.
So, Fedor walks forward, throws a bunch of punches. Rampage covers up. Rampage actually fights back this time. Up. Well, Pat, we said this was going to be a short night.
Indeed we did.
So that looked like a right hand from Fedor caught Rampage, I'm going to guess, on the ear. And he dropped forward. We'll see the replay again. We'll know for sure. Rampage actually cut a little bit underneath the eye.
Yeah, it looked like it was squared right there. We can see it again. And
all right, here it is.
I wish we weren't right about these things sometimes.
Yeah, okay. It was a straight right, and it hit him right underneath the eye. And Rampage kind of covered up, and his leg just went out from under him. And down he goes. Down, down, down. Your winner on this almost New Year's Eve Bellator extravaganza, this joint card with Rizin, Fedor Emelianenko by first round knockout.
Rampage's best offense in the round was checking that kick that Fedor almost tripped over himself.
We're getting notes from Robert Winfrey of 401 Mania that Rampage did a flare flop.
I mean, there was that sequence where Fedor stepped in on him, threw a couple good right hands. Rampage tried to, respond in kind, and he was out of breath after throwing 2 punches.
Yeah.
And upon just seeing, Rampage go down from the right hand, it was very clear that he's like, all right, I'm done.
Yeah, look, I know you're like, oh, well, they still have him on payroll, but if this is what he's going to do, he really shouldn't take fights anymore.
He's doing a fake protest of the stoppage.
Sure. It's like one of those where you've lost by decision, but you raise your hand anyway. Because,
What else are you going to do?
Yeah. All right.
The right hand just clipped him, and it was a good enough punch. It landed. It hit him on the cheekbone. But he literally flopped and was shaking his head no as he went down. Come on.
You said it before. Weebles wobble, but they don't fall down. All right. In this case, he fell down. This Monday on the Radulich Broadcasting Network, we've got Source Material Fight Club 2.
They made a second one of those?
They did.
That sounds like a terrible idea.
You should. The comic book the comic book itself is fine. The ending of the comic book is a great meta discussion about how fans often misunderstand the point of something, and the artist is kind of caught between doing what they set out to do versus fan service. And we had a really fun discussion about that. We will. January 1st, hopefully we'll be able to get our Full House discussion. Only the half of the season, Pat. I don't know if you saw that, but apparently they cut Season 5 into 2 parts. So we'll be discussing Part 1, hopefully this Wednesday, January 1st.
Yes, I'd like to thank The Sopranos for instituting that policy of half seasons.
We'll have our Metal Hammer of Doom year-end special, hopefully that night. And then our first on-trial of the year for the original Fight Club movie starring Ed Norton and Brad Pitt will be Thursday. And then Friday night, myself and Pat Mullin, once again, hopefully, will be doing our 3rd chapter of our Look Through Boxing on Joe Louis. And then we're supposed to cover ICW New York No Holds Barred, assuming Pat can make it. Don't know if his work schedule will allow him.
I'm working on it.
They may have him in chains, ladies and gentlemen. We're all praying for Pat. But that's currently the plan. The following week, we've got Doomsday Clock, Watchmen, which I loved. I can't wait to talk about it. Pat will be back on for the Metal Hammer of Doom January 8th to just do some 80s Kiss. And that's that. That'll be that for the week. So that's 2 weeks worth of shows. We've got we got a week full of Star Wars stuff in the archives now, so go ahead and check that out. Pat, other than doing recordings with me, you got anything else in the works?
What do I have in the works? No, I got nothing.
All right, well,
I used to do this show called The Casual Heroes. I don't know if you've heard of it or not.
I remember there used to be a thing called The Casual Heroes.
But I'm pretty sure that show ended when both of these guys were still in their prime.
They apparently still have an iTunes feed, so if people want to check out their previous shows, they've done they've done reviews of The Boys. They did a list of shows that have already came and went. So they did a review of The Shining. That was fun.
Does that even count? Because you and Gavin did a Shining show, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Nope, me and Sean.
Oh, Gavin didn't get in on that. Okay.
No, Gavin did his own thing. Gavin, however, did go on Source Material and talk about the first 5 issues of The Boys. So you can check that out in our archives. In any case,
I will check that out in the archives. I think it's worth checking out.
Absolutely. In any case, folks, they can't all be zingers, as I said once. So thank you for joining us on this short show for Fedor versus Rampage, such as it was. Happy New Year. Be well, be safe, and behave.